Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sarandini and I'm an entrepreneur and have been associated with InsideIIM as a video producer since 2022. The agenda of this webinar is to create awareness about doing MBA at top B schools in the world and how many different paths you can take to work abroad. Today, we are privileged to have Sarthak Daga, who is a Harvard Business School MBA candidate and an investment analyst at Attica Capital Management LLC in New York, joining us as a guest speaker. He's an engineer from IIT Bombay who has always been in the finance sector from the get-go. He will enlighten us about his journey, struggles, and achievements, shedding a spotlight on his transitions from engineering to finance and from India to the United States of America, and how Harvard Business School helped him do so. If you have any questions during the presentation, please comment on the live chat and we'll address them during the Q&A. So Sarthak, let's start. To begin with, Sarthak, you had an All India rank of 106 in JEE and a CGPA of 9.44 out of 10 in IIT Bombay. So I want to understand what kind of a student or a kid you were with all these achievements. So can you just enlighten us with some of your stories?
You wouldn't believe me if I said that I was a very naughty and a very stubborn kid. I used to drive my mom and my parents crazy all around the house. I used to run around. I had tons of energy, and I'm very grateful and I feel very fortunate to have the parents that I had because they sacrificed a lot to making sure that I could hone my energy and focus my energy to learning and to better things than just passing my time around. Um, so I think one of the redeeming qualities I had was I was very obedient and sincere when I needed to be. So I could focus a lot on the things that I was told to do. So that was one of the things that helped me. My mom was always after me, making sure that I was studying, that I was, and not just studying actually. She was making sure that I was learning all the things. I used to go to sports classes, to music classes, dance classes. I had a very all-round development at that time. Uh, but I always considered myself to be intelligent. So my father was all India rank one in CA in his time. My mom was a gold medalist. So there was always a lot of pressure to do well in school. My brother always used to top his class in his school. So I always had that pressure going on that you have to do something extraordinary to be known even in the family. So I was always focused on academics, even in my school days. I used to participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. Uh, that was that. I think for till ninth or 10th, I was studying a lot. I was participating in a lot of activities in school. My teachers loved me. And then at that point, then I started deciding what I want to do in life. And that time, and then I think I started thinking what motivates me to do in life, what motivates me in the life and what I want to do. And that's when I focused on my path.
So engineering was something you always thought about?
Not really. At ninth or 10th, there comes a time when you need to start thinking about which stream you choose. And for me, the choice was I just want to do the best thing that people are doing. It wasn't engineering, it wasn't uh, science per se. It was just what is the best thing that I can do with the uh, intelligence or smartness I've been given. And like most smart people usually took engineering and appeared for JE at
Hmm.
that point of time. So that's what motivated me. I wanted to prove myself that I can also crack the IIT entrance exam. I can be the best in academics. And that's what motivated me to go to IIT.
So how was IIT Bombay in that respect?
One word I would say is it was very humbling.
Hmm.
So as I said, I used to come first in my school till 12th grade. I was very good at a lot of things. But when you go into IIT, you realize that there are many people who are much more smarter than you. Like you're not the smartest person in the room anymore. So you need to start thinking about what differentiates you among those smart people. And that's when I started to think that if I'm not the smartest people, what can make me successful in life? And that's what pushed me towards working harder. Because I thought So a lot of people, what happens in IIT is people study a lot to get into IITs, but once they get into IITs, they start chilling out because they're just putting so much efforts is getting in there that they stop studying that much. They chill out, they are partying, they're enjoying. And I thought the way I could differentiate myself was just being focused on my academics and being focused on my career. Uh, so still, it gets so humbling because like people would party, people would go out, people would enjoy, and they would still come to the exams half an hour late, and they would still top the exams. So that's just a different experience that you can't get anywhere else, and that's what changed my trajectory after I came to IIT. I started working harder. I started thinking what I want to do in life, what will make me successful, and what are the characteristics that I need to develop during my time at IIT, which will differentiate me once I get out of IIT.
And what was your area of interest in engineering?
I was studying electrical engineering.
Hmm.
So that was coding on hardware, micro chips, computers, and I studied computer science as a minor as well. So
Hmm.
that was my area of focus.
Was there
But
a
I never,
reason? Oh, sorry. Please
no,
continue.
go ahead.
No,
I go ahead.
I was asking, was there a reason that you chose this? Was there a long-term vision with this?
Uh, I would like to think there was, but honestly, it just happened. It was the best branch and the best IIT I could get given the rank I got.
Hmm.
Again, it was driven by just doing the best thing. So electrical engineering was, at least at that time, it was one of the most sought after branches at IIT Bombay. Only the top 100, 125 ranks in IIT JEE got into that branch. So that's what motivated me into it. Um, yeah.
So after this, you actually interned in Morgan Stanley. So
Yeah.
I want to understand, were you thinking about finance at that time from there
Hmm.
onwards, or was there something else? You just entered a financial company?
Yeah. So I quickly realized, at least in my first couple of years in IIT, that I wasn't probably the best engineer or the best person at science because I didn't have the inclination for research, and I couldn't put in as much time into theory as other people could in learning other things. So I thought, what is the other field that I can use my skills in? So finance stood out because a lot of smart people went into finance, people who were very comfortable with numbers. Uh, and I just wanted to explore that field honestly in my internship in Morgan Stanley, and that's what it was. So it was a financial analyst role. I
Hmm.
was working with people in finance, and it was sort of back office role in which I was modeling and assessing the risk for some of the financial products that Morgan Stanley was selling in the US. I was
Hmm.
sitting in Mumbai and I was working on the back end on that. So it gave me some exposure to how the financial system and the world works, and that got me interested in this field. And then after my internship, I started spending more time in finance and I started reading more about it. Also, I would say that my family is from a financial background. As I said, my dad is a CA. So,
Hmm.
and he runs his own business. He started his own business, and the talk in the family was always around what's happening in the markets, how the economy is going, and there's a lot of finance talk. My brother was doing an MBA at that time, so all of that, I just felt that to even contribute to my family discussions, I need to learn finance and I need to learn about the world. And that's what brought me into this field.
Was it remotely like, does it have any aspect of engineering involved, whatever you did in the internship?
Yeah, internship, it had a lot of coding and programming involved, which I had learned.
Hmm.
So it was programming on the back end in Java, in Python. Yeah, it had some engineering involved, yes.
Okay. So from there onwards, you shifted to a private equity analyst at Blackstone Group, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So can you just explain what a private equity analyst does?
Yeah, maybe just stepping back a bit on why I joined private equity.
Hmm.
Uh, so for me, in my last year at IIT, the kind of jobs that usually open for engineers is it's usually back end. You're usually working in the back office. You're supporting the people who are on the front end. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the center of the action. I wanted to be in the front end center of the action. And I wanted a job which would expose me both to the front office and the back office. So private equity is an interesting job because in that you are on the front lines, you're interacting with management teams, but you're also on the back end where you're modeling out stuff. So what a private equity company does is very simple. Instead of buying goods and selling goods, what a private equity company is doing is they're buying companies and selling companies. So
Hmm.
they would invest in a company. They would improve the operations and profitability of that company over the next 4 to 5 years, and then they would sell that company out to other investors.
Okay.
So the role of an analyst there is you are trying to understand where a particular industry is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, how a particular company is going to perform in the next 5 to 10 years. And for doing that, you're talking to tons of people. You're talking to the most senior management teams that are there, and they give a lot of time to you because you're investing in them. So you can learn all the insides of the businesses from these guys, from the senior management folks. You're talking to research analysts, you're talking to consultants, accountants, lawyers. So it's a very broad exposure, and it makes you learn a lot, especially someone who's coming from engineering. I
Hmm.
had to learn a lot of financial concepts, accounting, financial modeling, and Blackstone helped me a lot in that for the first couple of months, and then you learn on the job. uh, so the job is very interesting. It teaches you a lot, it exposes you to a lot of different things, a lot of different companies, businesses, and that's what I loved about it.
I just want to get a bit back here. So Blackstone chose you instead of a finance person who has a finance background. So is there a
Yes.
story there that why were you chosen out of all these things, all these other people?
Yeah, so Blackstone is looking for smart and hardworking people.
Hmm.
And in India, IITs, especially IIT Bombay, is a very safe bet to find people who are smart, who are very comfortable with numbers, and who will also have a lot of grit and a lot of hard work, hardworking capability.
Hmm.
So that is what they bet on. So they use, at least Blackstone used to come only to IIT Bombay every year, hire just one or two people out of 800 people,
Hmm.
and that was their only recruitment routine. Other than 2 3 years down the line, they would hire
Hmm.
consultants and bankers. But from after graduation, they only used to come to IIT Bombay, and then they used to train us in finance. They used to teach us finance, and they knew that we could pick it up very quickly because we come from a good pedigree or academic pedigree and all of that. So that was their thinking. And most of the people in Blackstone in India are engineers and IITians, and not CAs or finance people. They're mostly engineers. Yeah.
So it's the credibility tag of IIT mostly.
It's the credibility tag. Yeah. You can be rest assured that you'll get a smart person who can work hard and who can toil the
Hmm.
long hours. Yeah.
So, as you said, a private equity and a company, a capital management company, what they do is they buy companies and sell companies, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, what I saw is the companies that you invested in served clients in US and Europe. So, how was that experience different?
Yeah. It was very different for me because I grew up entirely in India. My studies was fully in India. I never went to the west side of the world before joining Blackstone. So it's a different experience. The thought process that people have in the West, at least in the Western civilization, in US, UK, Europe, is a very capitalistic approach. So they're very focused on making the company perform better, whatever the repercussions and whatever the repercussions of the actions be. And that was a different experience because in India, you usually take a sort of a socialistic and capitalistic approach to things. So you think about employee, you think about people, but in the US, you just thinking about the profitability of the company, whatever actions you take. So that experience is a bit different. There's a cultural difference as well. Uh, Even the accent was a little tough for me to get initially.
I think
Uh,
you have a little bit accent now.
I've developed it now because people don't understand if I talk in my usual Indian
Hmm.
accent. So it's becomes a bit necessary to roll your R's and speak in an English accent so that people can understand you easily, and that's what I've developed. But that was a different experience. I was working with people from Europe, from France, from UK, from the US. So even talking to them, it was very different. So, for example, one of the big differences is there's much better work-life balance in the US and especially Europe, and people respect your personal time a lot and their vacation time a lot, compared to India, where vacation doesn't mean anything. You would still be working even if you're going on a vacation. So that was one of the cultural differences that I learned at that point of time. There are tons of things, but we can move on to other topics as
Sure.
well.
So I
Yeah.
think getting to the big elephant in the room, how did you get into Harvard Business School, which is amongst the top three B schools in the world, at least since the last 10 years?
Yeah, I would correct you and I would say that it's the best B school in the world. It's not a top three B schools.
I can see your loyalty.
uh, yeah, so I was at Blackstone for 4 years.
Hmm.
Uh, and I always thought that I was a very good individual, very strong individual contributor, in the sense that if I was given a task, I would do it to the best of my capability, and I would spend tons of time going to details and everything, and I would produce the best output I could. The
Hmm.
thing that I thought I lagged was I couldn't step back and maybe manage a team, uh, because that requires a different sort of skill set. That requires a lot of patience. That requires you to believe in the people, and that requires you to hold yourself back when you see something going wrong.
Hmm.
Because if you're an individual contributor, if you see something's going wrong, you would just jump in and solve it yourself. But if
Hmm.
you're managing a team, you have to believe in the person and you have to teach the person to solve that problem instead of you jumping in yourself. So that is something that you develop over time. And I wanted to develop that at the best management school in the world, because this Harvard teaches you how to manage teams, how to manage people, and how to take a step back and move on from being a strong individual contributor to being a strong leader. And that's the transition I wanted to make. So that's what motivated me to apply to Harvard. So after 4 years at Blackstone, I applied. So the process is pretty straightforward for Harvard. You give your GMAT, which is sort of equivalent to CAT in India.
Hmm.
It tests you on English and maths. I prepared for a couple of weeks for GMAT. I got 760 out of 800, which is a good score for getting into for the top B schools.
What is the average in the top B schools?
For Harvard, it's 740.
Hmm.
Stanford, I think it's similar, 740. Wharton, I think 730.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I
Hmm.
got 760. And then the main part of application for Harvard is your essay. Essay is what matters for any USB school. And in that, what you're supposed to talk about is what have you achieved in life? What have you done in life? What are your aspirations? What do you want to do in life? And how the B school will help you in achieving that.
Hmm.
So you spend a lot of time on that essay. You do a lot of iterations on the essay. My essay was about how I can help businesses transform and help communities become better, and how my path till now, till the time I applied to Harvard, how that had shaped my thinking about this, and how Harvard will help me in achieving this. That was my essay. So once you submit your essay, you get shortlisted for an interview.
Hmm.
The interview happens. It's a 30-minute, very quick interview. You ask like 30 questions in 30 minutes, very fast paced. Uh, and then they give out the results. And then there are multiple rounds of it. So I got in the first round, but people can get in Harvard in second round and third round. So this happens every year. Uh,
Can you just tell us maybe a few questions which were really interesting to you?
in the interview, they focus a lot on what you have been doing. So whatever you have written an essay for,
Hmm.
usually in Harvard interview, the questions are not similar to the IIM interviews. Like IIM interviews are usually very broad. They can ask you anything,
Hmm.
irrespective of what you have written. But at least that's what I've heard. But in Harvard interview, what they're checking is whatever you have written is the truth. They're only checking so that to weed out students who would have just written false things, because they have already sort of made a decision based on the essay that they like you. So they're just making sure that you have not written any false claims on the essay. So the questions are a lot around what you have written. So they go into the details. So one of the questions was just randomly, what do you think about Indian private equity industry compared to the US private equity industry? And then as sort of got out of the blue in that because I didn't have much experience about US private equity industry at that point of time. But I spoke what I have worked on what I thought was were the differentiators for India at that point of time. And I think the interviewer liked it because I was thinking on the spot. I was speaking, just thinking clearly at that point of time and speaking my mind.
Hmm. Okay. So now that you got in Harvard, how is the MBA structure in Harvard? Like, if I ask you, how is it like if you have to explain a day in Harvard? So how would you
Hmm.
explain that?
Yeah. Howard has been a very different experience for me compared to whatever I have done before and where I have studied before. The biggest difference is the way classes are structured. So I don't know if you would have heard about it, but the classes in Howard are structured as a case-based method. In that you are given a case before coming into the class. And it's a 20-25 page document on one company or on one issue which is going on in the world. And then you read about it before coming to the class. And the entire class is just discussing that topic. There's
Hmm.
no formal teaching that happens. There's no teacher who is teaching you or writing on the board and you're just writing notes. The entire class is just discussion. You're just discussing your thoughts and you're learning from all the diverse people who have come to Harvard and getting their thoughts and learning from their thoughts. It's very unstructured. It's very different from whatever we learn in India because in India, the education is very structured. There are 5 or 6 theorems you need to learn. There are 5 or 6 concepts. This is what will be asked in the exam, and you have to write exactly this. But in Harvard, it's totally different. It's very unstructured. It's very difficult to know what you learned after the class because it's just people are giving their points. Like, what do you take out of that discussion? So you have to get used to it in some time. It takes some time to get used to it. Um, so typical days you have from 9 to 9:30 a.m. to like 2 to 3 p.m. You have classes. You have 2 to 3 classes a day.
Hmm.
And after that, you're free. You're supposed to read about the next day's classes. There are a lot of clubs that you can go to. So for me, I'm part of the music club because I love singing. So I'm part of the a cappella group here. I'm part of the Indian community here where there are a lot of meetups that happen. So we
Hmm.
go out on coffees, we meet up, we practice singing. In fact, so there's a concert that happens in Harvard, which we practice for every week. Then in the evenings, usually there's someone on the or the other, you hit someone up, you go out for dinner, you talk to them about what they're planning to do in life, what they're thinking, how their uh, HBS experience is going and all of that. And then once you come back in the evening, then you start reading about the next day because you have to read before going into the class every day.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very social, it's very active, and you have to ruthlessly prioritize what you focus on because there for any point of time there would be 5 things that you could be doing at that point of time, but you need to choose what matters to you the most, and then you need to spend that moment on that thing and not think about anything else. There's a lot of FOMO that
Hmm.
happens, fear of missing out, because there's so many things going on. You need to be mature in that point of time and really understand yourself, what matters to you, and then go on that path.
But like in India, it's very competitive. So like every time you take, if you are taking music, then are you good at it? Then you'll be graded as per that. So is there something like that in Harvard, or it's all about what you like and what you want to do, and then carry forward?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So Harvard tries to make sure that people are not competing amongst each other, and they grade in such a way that people don't end up competing with one another for getting the grades. Uh, but they tend to do a very good job of it. The way we learn in classes is very collaborative because everyone's giving their thoughts. You're discussing with other people, so you're learning from each other. So there's no point in being competitive and holding back your information because that's how everyone is learning. So
Hmm.
you tend to speak a lot. You tend to speak your mind, give your opinions. Uh, I would just say that usually the people in Harvard are very friendly, very supportive, but there are different kinds of people who come here. They're very A-type people in which people are very competitive in general on their own. So when they come to Harvard, that sometimes reflects through, and people can end up being competitive, especially in career, um, in recruitment, in internships, and in full-time roles. But usually for in the learning experience and in social activities, people are very supportive and collaborative.
And how are you graded in Harvard?
Uh, so 50% of the grades is just class participation, how much you're speaking during the class. 50% is just that, and 50% is your final exams. And these final exams are open book, open notes. You have everything, but you have to write sort of an essay. It's a very subjective, long answer, which you have to write in the final exam. And that's how you're graded. And the grade is just 3 grades, 1, 2, and 3. And majority of the class gets 2. So there's not a lot of competition to get 1 or to be the highest. You just don't want to get the 3. You're okay getting 1 or 2. So it's not very competitive.
So the main competition is to get into Harvard. And then after that, it's collaborative.
That's true. That's true for most of the prestigious academic institutions. Even in IIT, the main competition is to get into IITs. Uh, for Howard, Stanford, the main competition is getting into Howard and Stanford. That's how they create their brand. That's why people like. That's why recruiters like people from Harvard and Stanford and IITs, because they know the filtration has already happened at some point of time.
And what are the perks of studying at Harvard? There are rumors that you get discounts in public transportation, housing. Is it true?
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Uh, Harvard Business School, you don't get any discounts.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to spend on everything possible. And because it's a graduate program, so they make it as such. Because for graduate program, people have already worked for a few years, so they already have savings, and they have now made a decision to do an MBA. So MBA is not a necessary education for which they need to subsidize it. It's an education that you have chosen to do, and there are scholarships for people who are from difficult financial backgrounds, but in general, you need to spend on everything, on housing, on food, on even books, on academic materials. There's no discounts.
Okay. So, what are the complications of getting into a university that is in USA, in the terms of visa, cultural differences? So, are there any complications in that process?
I would say it's getting easier. So the visa process is getting easier. But stepping back, getting into US university, there are two ways you can think about it. Like getting into any US university is not that tough, but getting into the best US university is super tough. So if you just want a US education, it's not difficult to get that. There are tons of universities and schools around the US which you can get into. But if you want to target the Ivy League schools or the best schools, then you have to put in a lot of efforts. But once you are accepted in the school, the process is pretty simple. Once the school has accepted you, your visa is straightforward. You just apply for a student visa, you go to the embassy, give an interview, you get the visa. Uh, Other than that, I think financing, sometimes if you don't have financing, even universities help sometimes if for means-based scholarships. Yeah, and then you fly out here. There's a lot of difference, especially if you're coming for the first time to the US. It takes some time getting used to, because the culture is so different. Uh, and we can talk about it more if you're interested, but it's just takes some getting used to. But usually once you get into the university, there's a lot of support system. You can talk to your classmates, you can see what other people are doing, how they're solving their visa issues, visa processes, or flights, what people are taking, where people are staying. So all that is very collaborative, and you can learn from other people.
And if you had to compare the standard of living of you living in India versus you living in USA, so how will you comment on this?
Mm, it's for me, it wasn't that different, honestly. So in your life, you have to recognize what privileges you have grown up with, and I would say that our family was well off. Like, we were comfortable. Like, my dad started from very modest beginnings. We didn't have a lot of money, but he worked a lot. He worked a lot. He started his own business, and he made sure that me, my brother, my family, we had enough. So we had a comfortable life in India. Uh, in the US, it's similar. Uh, Things are much more expensive, but the quality of things are better that you get here. Uh,
Mhm.
Things are much more expensive than India, though. Uh, the quality of air, I think, is the biggest differentiator for me, honestly. Uh, it's sad that cities in India are getting so polluted that it's difficult to go out and breathe in fresh air. I think that's the biggest life standard differentiation for me. It's not the material things that you find in the home, it's not the brands that you get out there, but it's just the clean air that you get if you step out. That's one of the biggest differentiators for me, and that has been uh, a different experience. The other thing is it's very independent here. Like in India, you have a lot of support system. You have your family supporting you. You have a lot of domestic help that you can get in making food and cleaning your house and laundry and all that stuff. But in the US, you have to do all of that on your own. So there's a kind of a trade-off. You are trading off a better living experience, cleaner living experience, trading that off for some of the comfort that you would have in India.
Okay. And if you had to describe the peers in Harvard in terms of maybe their cultural difference, their financial capabilities and mindset. So, what do you have to say about that?
Hmm. So Harvard is a very diverse school. It has students from all different backgrounds, from all different countries. Like my class has students from who have worked in Africa, who have worked in the Middle East, have worked in Australia and South America, in Mexico, in Canada, and all over the place. 60% of the class is Americans, 40% of the class is internationals. So for me, the learning has happened from these diverse backgrounds. So the cultural difference usually you see is the way people have grown up, and you have to probe people and talk to people in order to learn what they see differently in the world than what how you see the world. Uh, so one of our professors used to say this a lot, that there are two stories to every person. Your first story is your professional life, your academic achievements, but your second story is your personal life, how you have grown up, how was your family, what has happened in your personal life. And your second story tends to influence what you do in your first story. So to get to the second story, people are not really forthcoming and open about the second stories most of the times. So you need to develop relationships with people to understand their second story of their lives. And that's what really opens you to a different way of looking at things. That opens you to a different way of looking at life, what you want to achieve in life. So it's very diverse again. So going back to the point, like some people would just be focused on money in Harvard. They just want to earn the most amount of money. They want to have the best material things. And there's that section of group. And then there's a section of group who are just focused on making the world better. They just focus on working in climate change, working on healthcare, working on ESG things. And they're super focused on that. And they don't care how much money they're making, uh, which is a bit different than India. Like at least what I have been exposed to in India, like in IITs and in the place I was working at, people are very focused on making on making it in their life by achieving career things, by making money. But in the US, it's different because you have some of the living standards and you have this social security net. So you don't need to worry about making enough money. You can do what you want to do in life, what motivates you to do in life. And that's a big cultural shift and cultural change that you get exposed to once you come here.
Interesting. So, getting more into your life maybe now. So you left Blackstone Group in June 2021 and joined Attica Capital Management in May 2022. Both
Yeah,
of them are capital management companies, but there are a couple of differences here. You are an MBA candidate in at Harvard Business School right now, and instead of
yeah,
Mumbai, you're currently in New York. So
yeah.
keeping that in as a context of our questions, how different is your life compared to that in India as a private equity analyst in Blackstone currently? How different is it from that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I loved my job at Blackstone. As I think you understood, I really liked the exposure and learning I was getting. Uh, there's a thing that I have read that in a job, you should either be learning or you should be earning. If you do either, it's okay. If you do both, it's amazing. And at Blackstone, till the time I was there, I was doing both. I was learning and I was earning well. But after 4 years, it started dawning upon me that I want to learn a bit more about different things than what I've been doing for 4 years. And that motivated me to come to Harvard for doing an MBA. And it's a 2 year MBA. So between the 2 years, you do an internship here.
Hmm.
So this is the internship year that is going on for me.
Hmm.
So I'm interning at a long short hedge fund. Uh, it's similar work to what I was doing, but it's a different flavor. In this, I think I'm applying my intellectual ability more because a lot of work is just day in day out. You're just reading about stuff. You're reading so much what's happening in the world because based on that information you are making a trade in the stock markets. You're making a thesis on which companies you want to invest in. So you just need to be aware about a lot of things that are happening around the world. You need to be plugged in into what news is coming out, what's political scenarios are, what political decisions are being taken around the world, what results companies are throwing out, how the consumer is perceiving, how inflation is going, how prices are going up, and all those things. So you have to be plugged into that. So there's a subtle difference in the kind of work I'm doing here. The main difference, I would say, though, is in the culture. Like I touched upon this previously when we were talking. So people here are very respectful of your private life and your private time.
Hmm.
So they understand that weekends are for you. So you wouldn't be asked to work on weekends unless there's an actual, really necessary deadline coming up. Uh, like for example, till the time I've been working here for the last 2 months, I've never worked on any of the weekends.
Hmm.
Because it's just a cultural thing. Like everyone knows that you won't work on a weekend. Everyone is okay with it. Everyone knows that if unless there's something really pressing, you won't be asked to work after maybe 8 p.m. in the night. But in India, the working hours can go long.
Hmm.
That's a minor thing that I've experienced. I think it gets better in India as you progress through the career. I think you
Hmm.
have more flexibility, but at least when you start, you don't have flexibility over your time. People don't respect your personal time that much. So that is one of the key differentiation. The other thing is days start very early here. People wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. and offices start at 8 a.m. Uh, in India, offices don't usually start till like 9:30, 10.
Hmm.
Uh, and in India, the work then goes on till like 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., depending on, at least for me, it always went on beyond 9 p.m.
So is the
Uh,
8 a.m. thing because you are in a finance company? That is the reason, or in general, all companies in US have that timing?
in general, companies start early here. I would say it varies between 8 to 9 to 9:30 a.m., depending on which type of company you are in.
Hmm.
Uh, But for finance companies, mostly it starts early, especially if you are in a hedge fund like me, it always starts at 8 a.m. But you also finish by 6:30 p.m.
Hmm.
So again, so there's a lot of respect for your evenings here. People
Hmm.
know that you would go out for dinner, you can go out for dinner, you can meet friends in evenings. But people start working early.
Digging a bit deeper on your actual work, as in your role in this company, like you said that in Blackstone you used to have a forefront as well as a back end work, where you used to talk to management people as well as you cater to the research and analyze things and numbers and everything. So right now in Attica, how is the role different from that specifically?
Yeah. So at Atika, I would say, so Blackstone, the job was in two parts. So one was analyzing different companies, analyzing industries, trying to create your models on how the companies will perform over the next 5 years. That is one part of the job. The second part of the job was getting deals done and making presentations and making investment memos. And that was the grunt work sort of it, because you have to make presentations, you have to write memos, and that is not as intellectually stimulating, and it's not as intellectually satisfying as the first part of the job.
Hmm.
I would say at Atika, my entire day is just focused on the first part of the job rather than the second part of the job. So my entire work is just focusing on analyzing companies, analyzing industries, trying to read about stuff, trying to understand where the world is going, where the companies will go, how the companies will perform. And there's a lot less focus on doing the grunt work and making presentations and making memos and working with lawyers and accountants, which is sort of the work which is like, okay, which is good learning, but it's not as intellectually satisfying for me. So for me at Adhika, it's more about just thinking about stuff, just you keeping your mind on the entire time you're in office.
And how is MBA at Harvard helping you in doing this work better?
Ah, that's an interesting one. Let's see how it helps more. So it's just been 1 year at Harvard MBA.
Hmm.
I don't think it's helping me directly in the job I'm doing right now. What
Hmm.
it has helped me is in developing me overall. So, for example, at Blackstone, I was in a very small team. Blackstone only has like 16 people in entire India. So it was just, I was working with just 16 people day in, day out. But once you come to Harvard, you are exposed to 999 other people. So it's
Hmm.
a very different experience for me. Yeah, I'm thinking about people more than I used to before. Earlier, I used to just be focused on my work. I didn't used to think about people in general, about what other people are doing, uh, about politics that happen if you have so many people. And now I'm learning about that more. Uh, and I think touching back upon the thing that I talked about first, that becoming from an individual contributor to a leader is what Harvard is all about. And
Hmm.
that is something that I'm learning because the courses are all around how people like us who have been so focused on their work are now making a transition into managerial role, and how you need to step back, how you need to make other people better instead of just becoming yourself better. And that's the leadership angle that you are taught in Harvard Business School. And that's what I'm learning. And I think it will help me a lot in any managerial position or leadership position that I take in the future.
Okay. And as you said, you're not doing the grunt work. So are you making others do it? Or are you managing or leading that?
No, it's just the nature of a hedge fund, of a public markets
Okay.
investing company, that the grunt work is not that much. Like
Hmm.
there is a different kind of grunt work, but that's like 10 to 20% of your time. 80% of your time is just about thinking and just about creating and analyzing companies.
Okay. So you're currently an MBA grad as well as you are interning in investment analyst role. So how is that working out? Are you studying something in Harvard as well, parallelly with your internship, or it's just core internship right now?
No, so it's just internship right now. It's the summer break that we have between first and second year. So Howard is in Boston. It's on the East Coast. It's one of the coldest places in the US. So
Hmm.
1 year I was there in Boston, and then the summers I'm spending in New York. So right now I'm working in Manhattan. My office is there. Uh, so just shifted to New York for these couple of months, but then I'll go back to Boston for completing my second year.
Okay. And your work timing right now is 8 to 6, right?
8 to 6, 6:30.
Okay. And so what do you do in your free time?
Yeah, has tons of things to do. It's New York, it's Manhattan. There's so many things to explore. And I have my wife here. I have a lot of friends here. We keep meeting up with. Uh, The food here is amazing, by the way. There are so many cuisines, uh, and every restaurant has to fight amongst each other to become the best because the food scene is so competitive. So you
Hmm.
can be rest assured that whatever restaurant you walk in, you will have good food. So we've
Hmm.
been exploring tons of different cuisines. We're meeting friends, going to jazz. We went to jazz club. We have been going out, just different experience to rooftop places. Just buildings are beautiful in Manhattan. I don't think I need to
Hmm.
tell you that. So just watching the skyline, and it's a good time of the year as well.
Hmm.
Because it's summers, it's pleasant. You can go out, you can walk around. There's a huge park in Manhattan called Central Park, which is beautiful. There's tons of things to do. Like every weekend, we have every evening we have some or the other plan made up
Hmm.
with friends or with classmates. We're going out, we're watching sport games, we're just hanging out. Yeah.
So, in the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about why you worked so hard, and how did you crack so many things and got so great CGPAs. And you always mentioned that you wanted to do something that is best out there, and your family has always been supportive, and they are also, I think, I won't say overachievers, but maybe overachievers.
So I am the underachiever in my family, frankly.
I think our audience is going to kill me. Like, what? But yes, you have achieved, and the main motivation that I saw is this only: you wanted to do everything from the best place, and that was something that you were chasing, maybe a short term goal every time, doing something from the best place. So now,
Yeah,
after all these experiences, what is it that you're chasing in life? Do you have any future plans, the goal that you are looking for?
yeah, that's a very good question. So stepping back, how I grew up is like my dad and my mom have been my role models for a very long time. My dad is very simple, very hardworking. Uh, he started his own business, as I said, from scratch, and he doesn't have any brothers or any other management team. He's running it on his own. So I have seen him work really hard, and that's what like motivated has always motivated me to work hard. And I've been exposed to religion since childhood. Like I'm a Jain, and I follow Jainism principles to the extent I can. And what that has taught me is not to chase material things in life. So I won't be satisfied if I get the best material things, but I will be disappointed if I'm not putting my best efforts and if I'm not doing hard work. So that's what keeps pushing me to do as much as I can every day, every night. And that's what has pushed me to achieve the best thing. So for me, I think now that I think about it in retrospect, that I've, as you say, I've gone to so many good places, I've studied at good places. Uh, Now in the future, what I want to do is I want to contribute back to the country that gave me so much. In the long term, I do want to go back and settle down in India. The reason I came to the US is I want to get the experience of working here, of how companies work here, uh, how industries do here, how the world is so different here. It's just learning, it's just broadening my mind. It's also good to get this experience at this stage in my life because there are tons of things to do and you can go out and you can enjoy life. But for me, it has not been just about making the most money or getting the best material things in life. And I want to earn the most money because I want to be the best, because I want to be the best. But once I earn that money, it's important where you use that money. And if I use that money in just accumulating material things, then I won't be satisfied. I want to use that money to contributing back to society and where I've grown up. So I want to earn not for myself, but I want to earn so that I can contribute back to the society. And that's what always guides me. And that's what I've learned through my Jainism principles, after seeing my dad, and that's what I want to emulate in my life. So I still want to be the best. I want to make the most, uh, but I don't want to earn that for myself. I want to earn that for someone else.
As you said, you want to contribute back to the society. I think this webinar is a contribution, stage one, maybe. Yeah, I think you're helping people, a lot of people right now. So I think my questions are over. We'll get into the Q&A session now, maybe take up 6, 7 questions and see how people are also responding to your webinar. So yes, so the first question is, are there any freshers in Harvard Business School?
No, Harvard Business School doesn't take in freshers. You need to have at least, especially from India, you need to have at least a 3 to 4 years of work experience. That is a must for getting into Harvard Business School. 2 years is the minimum they have, but usually from India, they look at candidates who have 3 to 4 years of experience.
Okay.
Minimum.
Okay. Another question is, what is the package after Harvard? And do you become overqualified for an Indian market after an Ivy League?
Hmm, it's an interesting question. If you're working in the US, then your package can range anywhere from $150,000 a year to like $500,000 a year. So in Indian terms, that is around a crore to 3.5 crores a year.
Hmm.
That's all pre-tax, and it's all in the US. So your expenses are also more. So you have to compensate for that purchasing power parity. But in that's the usual range. For India market, if you are an Ivy League business school graduate, then I think the jobs that you can go in mostly are finance jobs. And for that, you would look for either a private equity job or a hedge fund job.
Hmm.
And that's where most of the Ivy League graduates are concentrated in India. Like most of the people at Blackstone that I was working with who are post MBA people, they are from Harvard or Stanford. So people do come back, and these are the kind of jobs that people come back to in India because one, it's good work, it's good life standards, and it pays you really well. So
Okay. Then we have one more question. What about permanent residency? Do employees sponsor your visa if you are an Indian?
yeah, so it's getting tough. It has gotten tough over the last 4 to 5 years. The H-1B visa process has gotten more stringent. Uh, Companies are not that supportive of applying for your visa. It also depends on which industry you're in. Like tech industry is very comfortable with this. So if you are in a tech industry, because they take a lot of Indians in it. So tech companies like the big ones, Google, Alphabet,
Mhm.
Alphabet, Facebook, uh, Apple, they would all sponsor for you. But all other companies, all other industries, it's a bit difficult for international people to get in, because usually companies prefer people who have permanent residency and work authorization in the US.
Hmm.
So getting a job here is becoming tougher if you're not in tech. I would say that.
Okay. And I think we have some fitness freak amongst us. He's asking, does Harvard have a gym on campus?
Oh yeah, it has an amazing gym facility with huge gym. It has squash courts, badminton courts, basketball courts, tennis courts. It's one of the best facilities in Boston, and we have that in Harvard campus, so it's very convenient.
Great. He'll be happy to hear this, I'm sure. Somebody's asking, why do you think Harvard case style teaching is better than how Stanford does it? Or how case style teaching helps in companies? Say one lands a project management role at Google or Apple.
Yeah, so the way decision making happens in companies is in meetings and through discussions. And that is what you learn in a case method. Because in a case method, you are making your point and you're listening to the other person's point. And that's where you learn, that's where the learning comes from. And that is what happens in the meeting room on job as well. In a meeting room, if you don't speak up, no one will pay attention to your thoughts, to your points. So what the case method pushes you to do is speak up, is make your points, is make yourself heard. And that's how decisions get taken in companies, in businesses down the line. And that's how you start differentiating yourself in your meetings. And that's when people know that, okay, this guy knows his stuff and we should promote him. And that's when you come onto the minds of the people when you speak. And that's what how the case method pushes you to do.
Okay. Uh, Next question. In case H-1B visa doesn't work out, what other plans can one have? Any
So
idea?
the student visa for US usually gives you a runway of 1 to 3 years of working without getting an H-1B visa. So you can at least work for those years. Uh, if H-1B visa doesn't work out after those 1 to 3 years, then it becomes a bit tough. You will probably need to go back to India and you will need to keep applying in the lottery till the time you get that H-1B visa. But if you don't get that H-1B visa after 1 to 3 years, then you won't be able to work in the US. That's the sad part of it.
Okay. Next one is, do people connect with some favorite professors outside class hours, say dinner, club sessions, weekend adventures, or professors usually have commitments outside
Yeah,
HPS?
yeah. No, there's a lot of meetups that happen with professors. You can set up office hours with professors, go into their offices, talk to them about your career, about how their career went, because a lot of these professors are industry veterans who themselves were in the industry for a very long time and now they have chosen to become professors. So you can learn from their experience. There are picnics that happen with professors, so you hang out with them, you talk to them what's happening in their life, so you can connect with them outside of the classroom as well.
Okay, great. Next one is, does it matter if someone has a gap year in bachelor's degree?
Uh, I would say depends a lot. So usually what Harvard is looking for is either two of the following three. So the three things are either they're looking for great academic achievement or the great professional achievement, or they're looking for very good social contribution. So any two out of these three, if you have, you can make into Harvard and you can make into Stanford and all of these schools. So even if you had a gap year, if after that you did well academically and you did well either professionally or in your social contributions, then you can make it.
Okay, great. And then I told you 6, 7 questions, I know, but I think many people have questions. Uh,
Sure.
we just have 4 questions left, so I'll just continue.
Yeah.
Somebody is asking, I'm a consultant at PwC. How could I approach best B schools in US, like top 15? So I think they are asking what is it that these B schools are looking for
Yeah.
in their profile.
Yeah. So I just alluded to that in the previous answer. So they're looking for these three things that I said.
Mm.
Being a consultant at PwC, I would say depends on what work you have done. If you think you have contributed a lot to different kinds of industries and you have worked enough. So for consulting, I would say you need to at least work for 4 to 5 years minimum to start thinking about MBA. And other than that, you need to start contributing back to the society because Harvard pays a lot of attention to that. So you need to work with NGOs, you need to spend your weekends contributing back to the society. And if you have done that, uh, I think that is the second aspect that Harvard will value a lot. So you can, if you haven't done it yet, you can start thinking about making some contribution socially for the next couple of years and then probably apply.
Okay. And amongst your peers, were there any CAs, CFAs there who got in Harvard?
Oh yeah, there are few CAs. I think there are 35 to 40 people from India in my class. Out of that, I would say I think 5 to 6 are CAs. Most of them are IITians. Few of them are from SRCC, from Stephens. But yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, that's more than 10 to 20% almost. That is
Oh
great.
yeah.
That is great. Uh, yeah, one is asking, does MBA from a reputed B school is as rewarding as MS in AI, big data, etc.?
Depends on what your interests are and what you want to do in life. MS in AI is a tech role. You would
Hmm.
get an engineering role after that. After MBA, you won't get an engineering role. You would get a business role. So it
Hmm.
depends on what you want to do. Both paths are good. Both paths are proven. A lot of people have taken either of the paths. It depends on what you want to do, really.
Great. I think you have answered all the questions, and I got whatever you answered. I got it. I hope others.
I
Thank
hope
you.
this has been useful and
Yeah,
helpful for
yeah, you
people.
were completely. And I'll get to know from my audience as well, and I'll forward that to you.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for doing this. I'm always looking for avenues to help people out.
This is
So
really great. Yeah,
yeah,
whatever you did, I don't know if in India we have done this before or not, but this is something very invaluable information that you gave us. So
perfect, awesome.
yes. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining Inside IIM to discuss Sarthak Daga's journey from IIT Bombay to Harvard Business School and from an engineer in India to an investment analyst in New York. Congratulations for that as well. Your dreams are coming true,
Thank you.
Sarthak. We appreciate you signing in and hope you learned something new and interesting. I'll see you soon for the next webinar. Thank you, Sarthak.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Thanks.
Bye bye.